Okay, so I hope to in this tutorial to kind of explain how you scale your objects so that they're the right height, the right size and length, of which is the proportions, just getting the proportions of your models correct. Um, Sometimes it can be a little tricky, sometimes it's not too bad, but anyhow, we're going to try and cover that in this video. And I'm going to use Blender for this video, but you should be able to apply these concepts in whatever program you use. Alright, so I'm just going to delete those objects. Alright, here we go. First of all, you want to have a background image, if at all possible. I'm going to figure out which one I want to add here first. Probably should have figured that out beforehand, but oh well. Okay, so that's 6. But like I said before in my last video, I kind of have a new file system worked out here, so it's a lot more organized than it used to be. Alright, so add my background image here. I'm just going to scale it. Now, according to the USGS, each tile that I downloaded here is, did I say it? I think it's 1,500 meters. 1,500 meters in size. So I'm going to scale this, type in 750 here. That should give me the right scale on the background image. And of course, a background image you can only see if you're in orthographic and looking straight down or to this side or whatever. But anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and position this. So when you add your background image, you don't necessarily have to use the true to life scale. Sometimes your programs, they kind of like to have a smaller model, and then you can size it up when you export to Flight Simulator. So I mean, you could divide this, make it like a tenth of the size, and then when you export it using Model Converter X, you can scale it up by a factor of 10 to get to the true to life scale. So just a little thought there. But anyhow, background image is pretty easy. And then I'll discuss in a second here what you can do if you do not have a background image. Okay, so we have that lined up. Now if you don't have one here, or don't have a background image, I usually go to Google Earth. Hopefully my internet's not going to be too slow. All right. Zoom in here. So if you don't have a background image, one thing you can do, you can get a nice top-down view of the building and then take, say, like Windows snipping tool or whatever you want to use, and you can just grab a snapshot of your building. All right, and then when you have that, I might as well just save this. I'll save it as like 1 or something. And then you want to take a measurement here. So you go Tools, Ruler. Depending on what your units are. In this case, I'm using meters in Blender, so let's take a measurement. It's gonna be approximate, but usually Google Earth is pretty close. So it says 49.2 meters. When it's close to that, a certain measurement, I like to round up, to a nice even number. So I'm gonna say 50 meters. So if you go back in here, what I'm going to do is go to my top view. I'm going to hide that for a second. All right, so So what I'm going to do here is go to, let's see if I can find where that went. Might have to be in edit mode. Let's see. I'm looking for the ruler here, but I can't find it. Oh, grease pencil. There we go. So you take your ruler protractor. All right. And we're going to measure out 50 meters. Down here it tells you what to do if you mess up. So let's see here. Escape equals cancel. There we go. Let's try it again. I haven't done this in a while, so let's see if I can get it right. Press Control. Alright, so do I either want to click? Nope. Let's see. Add. Press Control. Now, there we go. Just hold down Control, left click, drag out approximately the distance. So right about there. All right. Then I'm going to add mesh. I'm just going to go ahead and add a plane for this. And I'm going to make it the approximate size here. All I'm looking for is the length to this ruler I laid out here. So right there. Alright, now that I have this, I can just press Escape to get rid of that ruler. And now I'm going to add an image. So instead of adding a background image, this time I'm going to show you a different way to do it. I'm going to do Shift-A, Mesh, Empty, and Image. Alright, I'm going to say Open Image. Let's see, no, over here on the right side under this thing, wherever that is. We'll say Open. Find our picture that we just took. Alright. We're going to set the size. So, in this case, we really don't know what size to set it to, but we do have our sort of scale over here. So, if I bring the transparency down, alright, and then I grab my empty. Okay, so we have to keep scaling up. Alright, that's looking better. Getting there. And a little more. Alright, so that's pretty darn close. And so now your building, or your image is scaled more or less exactly how it should be. Of course, you can spend a little more time to get that a little more exact. But there you have it. And so you notice if you use it empty instead of using a background image, you can see the image in perspective, orthographic mode, and from any angle, which can be useful. Alright, so you have your background image. I'm going to go ahead and hide that at least. Go to top view. I'm missing my background image now for some reason. But that's okay, I'll add it again real quick. Alright. There we go. That was weird. Let's try that again. Type in 750. All right, and then I'm just going to position this. And of course, a lot of times for each building model, unless they're, like these models, these buildings right here, which are all kind of close to get together, for starters, I'll have a separate project file for each building. So when you do that, you want to make sure that the building that you're going to work on is more or less centered right over the origin. All right, so that's pretty good. Another advantage with using an empty instead of a background image is you can rotate that. So that can be useful as well. All right, so we now know, the basic dimensions. We can add a plane. And we can scale this up. And I'm not going to be exact about this, but all right. And I don't really worry about misalignment stuff. It's just more of a general idea to get my scale right. So anyhow, we have that. But now we need to figure out how to find the height. All right, so there's a couple methods you could use. First of all, you want to search around on Google and try and find some images of that building. So if you don't find any, sometimes you can find someone that will take pictures for you. And I was fortunate enough for someone to contact me and take some pictures of, let's see here, of this building. So that was sure nice of them. If I can find the picture now. It's somewhere right here, I think. All right. So this is great here because the way he took this is, you see how the image is square with the building, the sides of the building. And so what I can use this image for is to actually get a fairly accurate height for my model here. So what I can do is add mesh. I gotta go out of edit mode. Shift A, or out of object mode, I guess. Let's see here. No. At Shift A, empty image. All right. I'm gonna open that image, whatever it was called. Let's see here. I gotta find it now. All right, so we have our image now. This actually turns out to be the wrong one. Let me see if I can find the right one. This sometimes can be a little frustrating, but let's see here. Because I should have named these something different. There we go. Now that's the right one. Of course, now we have to scale this. So I'm going to go to my top view, and I'm going to scale this like we did with the previous image. Okay. Just going to grab it, scale it up, until the sides of the building match our plane here. All right. That's pretty close. And now if we rotate, whoops. And one thing to note though is that we scaled that image proportionally, so we didn't like warp the image or stretch it or anything. So just to note that the proportions are still the same. Rotate 90 degrees. I'm going to go to this view, press grab Z, bring it down to that axis there. Alright. And I'm going to bring the transparency up. Alright. And so now you can see we know the height of our building. So if I move this this way, and now I can select our plane, just press, go into edit mode, extrude this. Alright. So right about there. And then I'm going to invert that selection if I can. Hide that. Control R. Split that there. And grab Z. Move that up. Alt H. And so basically there you go. And of course, you want to spend a lot more time refining that. But that's more or less the idea. So you have a fairly accurate height on your model now. And that is probably the best way to get the height of your building. But if you do not have an image like this to help you, you're stuck with trying to figure it out a little more arbitrarily. So if you look at this image here, we can see a door in the image. Most doors, I guess, around 7 feet, more, give or take a few inches. But what we can do now, in this case, I'm just going to eyeball it, but we see we have 1 door, 2 doors, 3 doors, 4 doors, 5 doors, and a little bit more for the angle of the roof. But if we take 5 doors times 7, we get 35. So 35 feet, and then of course you'd have to divide, convert that to meters if you're using meters. But anyhow, so that's how you can kind of get a general height. And then after that, you go into here. And then you extrude make it so it's approximately, what would that be, about 10 meters or so. That's a little tall. Let's see. I'm actually going to take my calculator. Get this right. 35 and a meter is about 3.3 feet, so. Alright, so that's pretty close. So, going to have about 10 meters, alright? And so you see, we have a little discrepancy here between the actual height and the height that we calculated by the height of the door, using the height of this door here. And obviously I didn't spend a whole lot of time getting the measurement quite exactly right. What you can do is go into GIMP and let's see. And you can just add that image. And then if we just select this door and then Control C, Control V to new layer, then we're just going to go like this. Okay. Control Shift D adds another layer. Another door. Okay, let me move this one up. Alright, so we're at about 4 doors, maybe another half a door for the angle of the roof. Quite possibly a whole nother door. But that's closer to about 4 doors, so it's actually kind of neat. Alright, anyhow, I was just kind of looking at that. So 28 feet, go in here. Or find our calculator, wherever that went. And so we take 28, convert this to meters by dividing by about 3.3 or so. So we have 8.48. So extrude 8.48 or so. And there we have a much more accurate measurement. So anyhow, that's another way you can get the height of your building. Alright. So that covers that fairly well. By the way, there is the way I learned this method using an image to get the height of your building. I learned that from a tutorial that someone wrote on the FS developer community, and I'll link to that in the description so you guys can take a look at that tutorial. But yeah, I thought it was quite brilliant. Okay, so let's look at some other things. So let's talk about. I'm going to open up SketchUp here. Let's talk about creating a building that's a little larger. All right. This is going to be a little more difficult, but a lot of the same concepts apply. You really want to have some sort of background image to aid you. So in this case, if you can find photoreal image like this, you could use this. You could also go on to Google and especially like airports in America, if you type Spokane International Airport Terminal, or just like that, you can usually find like a terminal map or something, and if it's scale, you have to kind of check on that, but a lot of times they're fairly close. You can use that as another means of having a reference image. That one that's maybe not quite so complex, and maybe even easier to follow the contours of the terminal. So let's see here. So you go down here to Maps. Alright, so here you can see here's a sort of a simplified version of that, of the terminal, and that can be a good way to kind of get a general idea of the kind of outline of the terminal and stuff like that. So that's another option if you can't find like reference, photoreal images of the terminal. You can also go into Google Earth, and like we did with this building, you can take a snapshot of the terminal, but just be sure not to actually use that image in your scenery, because that kind of violates copyright issues. So anyhow, let's go back to SketchUp here. Determining the height that you need to make your terminal at is a little tricky. Most of the time you're not going to be able to find any information on the height, and of course a lot of times you really can't find many pictures of a terminal, at least not pictures that are square with like a face of the building, where you could use that method I showed you, where you take the image and line it up and scale it proportionally to get the height of the building. So that's not really an option here. So basically what you have to do, more often than not, if it's at all a major, at all a recognized airport, you'll often be able to find at least some pictures of the terminal. Let's see here if I can find any though. Let's see here. So let's see. So you can like look here. The parking garage, a little tricky. This kind of took sort of trial and error. But, you know, we can sort of see things here. We know, I estimated that this bit right here is maybe 3 feet or so, and you can kind of, you know, kind of judge, well, okay, here's 3 feet, 6 feet, 9 feet, 12 feet or so, and you kind of guesstimate by that way. It can really help if you can find a door. So like right here, there's a door right there. Hard to see, but I think there is one right there. There are 7 feet, 14 feet, okay? That's about the, maybe even 7 feet, another 5 feet or so. So that's about 12 feet to the bottom of this here. And so that actually works out pretty well. So you can see 12 feet, that's about what I calculated, assuming this was about 3 feet here. So 12 feet to about right here. And after that, you kind of have a general idea. It's like, okay, so if we know this is 12 feet, then we got to have another 10 feet, 10 feet, you know, etc., etc. And of course, sometimes you have to kind of scale things a little bit and mess around with things to get the height to look about right. But anyhow, that's really all there is to get, you know, getting that to scale. Jetways, sort of the same thing. You just have to find images, and you know, it might take you a couple tries to get it to where you like it, but basically you just kind of eyeball it. There's not a whole lot you can do unless you can find blueprints or find some really good you know, head-on images with one of the sides of the jetway or something that might help you. But or you might be able to find somebody that would, you know, take some measurements for you. But anyhow, that's all kind of, you know, just where you're kind of stuck at with that. Not a whole lot you can do. But yeah, so that's pretty much all there is to getting the scale of your models correct that I know of. You know, if you can think of other ways, then I'd use them. But this method works well. Using your background image, of course, is very important. And you can always look up in Google Earth, take some measurements, and use those. But anyhow, hope this video was at least helpful in some way or another, and kind of gives you a little bit better idea of how to work with your models. All right.